first of all, if you're a researcher, then you've got to have no-go areas, because if you've got no-go areas, you're not going to research all possibility. You're going to avoid areas that might put your belief system under challenge. So whether you've got a religious belief system, doesn't matter what it is, or a political belief system or a cultural belief system, it doesn't matter. If you are holding that rigidly and you will not question it, then, or allow it to be questioned, then there's great areas that you won't go into. And there was a guy in ancient Greece, Socrates, a philosopher, who is quoted as saying that to know is to know you know nothing. That is the meaning of true knowledge. Put another way, wisdom is knowing how little we know. And what I see is so many people, and I'm seeing the mainstream, what I would call the hijacked alternative media, doing exactly this. It gets to a certain point and it kind of thinks it's got it. And once you think you've got it, you're just confirming you haven't. And
Yeah,
my,
right.
my my philosophy all along has been to constantly pursue what I don't know. So instead of saying, well, okay, I can see how the powers that run the world are not the powers that appear to run the world, like presidents and prime ministers and such like. Um, okay, so that's pretty obvious if you do the research. So okay, I've got it now. That's it. But I don't work like that. I say, well, okay, so what more do I need to know? What don't I know? What's beyond that? And
Yeah,
what
I
that
mean, what keeps you going? You've been doing this since I was 8.
yeah, I know. 1990 I started. But this is the point that well, there's many points that come from this. So you're constantly pursuing the cutting edge and going beyond it. And that means that if you allow information to be your guide and not preconceived idea, then that's going to take you into some very apparently strange areas. Now, most people won't go there, even if they would like to, or even if they do go there, they won't talk about it because they fear what other people think. Exactly the point you just brought up. And I don't have that. My philosophy is believe what you like, say what you like about me. It don't matter to me. But I'm going to do what I believe is right, irrespective of how people receive that and perceive that. So from about 96, I started going into areas that were already from the perceived normal far out, and that was that a non-human force was behind the names, dates, places, political, economic manipulation of the world. And then you ask more questions. You say, okay, so why can't we see them? Why are they hidden from us? This non-human force, and then you start to move. And this is why to uncover what's going on. It's no good just staying in one area or one subject area or studying politics. You've got to study the whole massive spectrum of human life and possibility. So I started looking at the whole nature of reality, and I got big time into that. I'm still into it. It's my passion, actually. And you start to realize that this hidden force, which is, by the way, described by ancient cultures all over the world and religions, um, you talk to a Christian or a Muslim or whatever, and you'll say, well, what's this negative force that's manipulating human society, which you can't see? And they'll say, oh no, you can't see it. No, it's Satan or the devil or shaitan in Islamic terms. So why can't you see it? I mean, these are the questions that
Yeah.
I'm always asking. And then you start to realize, and this should be taught in the schools to children at the earliest time they could grasp it, it's that when we look through our eyes, we're only seeing a fraction of what there is to see in the space that we're looking at. We're only seeing a tiny, tiny band of frequency called visible light. And to put that into perspective, according to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum, which is pretty much experienced human reality, is 0.005% of what exists in the universe in terms of energy in all its forms. And visible light is a tiny fraction of the 0.005%. So you start from that perspective that we are basically blind to what exists in the space that we're occupying because we can only see a tiny band of frequency within it. Now, immediately, that completely underpins the original idea of knowledge is knowing how little we know. Because how the hell are we supposed to know when that's the situation we're in? Yeah. And so then you start to see that outside of this band of frequency, visible light, visually, everything else of a different frequency is denied us. And what we are, one of the great ways that we're controlled is to impose a sense of normal. This is a serious big one, because if you look at people saying, well, that's far out, that's not possible. Why are you saying that? Because you're coming from your perspective of normal that you have been programmed to believe in through the education system and the media and all these sources of information. And therefore, it's not really far out. Actually, it explains so much about the world. But it seems far out to you because you're coming from this perspective of normal. And another great way that we're controlled is to impose our sense of the possible. So you squeeze the sense of the possible, and anyone who comes along and says, this is what's going on and this is how they're doing it, if it's outside your sense of the possible, you're immediately rejecting it by reflex action. That's not possible. That's impossible. That can't be happening. And what I started to understand a long time ago now is that we actually live in two worlds within one world. One part of the world is what I call the global cult, which is a global network of secret societies, which are fiercely compartmentalized. In other words, the vast majority of people within the cult don't know the big picture of what the cult is doing and why and where it's leading. But at the inner core, this cult, in its secrecy, in its compartmentalized structure, is passing on through the generations advanced knowledge about reality, massively important, and about where the world's being taken. And this same cult in America, through people like the Rockefellers, for instance, J.D. Rockefeller and such like, created the sources of information that the population get their perceptions from. Yeah, so the Rockefellers were behind the creation of the education system in the United States, for instance, and who is one of the biggest funders, if not the biggest funder, private funder of education in America? Bill Gates, who's a Rockefeller gopher.
Yeah, didn't they say they don't need any more Thomas Edisons or something back then? But they were trying to dumb us down back in the early 1900s.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, they were suppressing the knowledge, the scientific knowledge that people like Nikola Tesla had, and others were fronting up and taking his information, like Edison and such like. And what they've done, they've created two sources of information that are massively different in terms of how advanced they are. One's passed on through the cult, one's passed on through the sources of information that the population have access to. And if you think about it, because, you know, we can talk about, you know, the political manipulation and all this stuff, and we should. I mean, I do it myself, but this is where the game is played out. It's played out in human perception, because if there's a few of you, and this cult compared, the inner core of the cult particularly, compared with the human population, is tiny in number. If they're going to control billions, they have to control the perception of the billions. And they've been doing that by control of information as best they can through censorship. That's control of information, so that people come to perceptions that suit the cult agenda. And from our perceptions comes behavior. If you want people to behave a certain way, you get them to perceive a certain way, and so on. And we are now heading towards what they plan is the almost the ultimate control of perception, which is connecting the human brain body to AI, so that AI becomes the human mind. So our perceptions are no longer formed from information received; they come direct. That's the idea.
So
this is the hive mind I've been warning about for decades.
Is that like the simulation in the simulation and the simulation you're talking about, where you just go deeper and deeper into where they want you to go instead of reconnecting with consciousness or whatever?
That's absolutely right. I mean, after this non-human force, and I started to then understand the nature of reality, and why, we can see virtually nothing, etc. What then happened just after the turn of the millennium is I started to realize that this is a simulated reality. It's like a digital construct, but it's not a construct in that sense. It's an information source which we are decoding into an apparently external reality, which is actually all going on in here. And fortunately, in contrast to the shamans of the past and the deep thinkers of the past, we have tools, analogies that make it much easier to explain how this simulation works. I mean, if you were a shaman from long ago, and you had started to understand about this simulated reality, where do you start explaining that to the people of the time? You can only use the analogies of your culture, your society. And then along comes an anthropologist or an historian much later, and they said, "Oh yeah, they believe in these gods, and they're very primitive. But actually, if you take the symbolism and you play it across other symbolism in different societies around the world, actually they were describing in many ways the same thing. So you have this simulated reality, which can now, thank goodness, be explained through the technology that's emerging. Because it's become very clear to me that the technological explosion that's going on is actually mirroring the reality that we're experiencing. So when I'm talking about an information construct, which we are decoding into this apparent physical reality, actually it's holographic. I'm just explaining in another way the process of Wi-Fi and a computer. Mm-hmm. If there was Wi-Fi in this room, where is it? You wouldn't be able to see it, but it's there because you can connect your computer to it. And what the computer then does is take that information, which is in a completely different form in a radiation field, and decodes it into a completely different reality on the screen. And if you think, okay, so where is the reality that we experience as the internet? It's inside the computer. We're just observing it from outside, but it's inside the computer. It's being that Wi-Fi field is being decoded by the computer into a completely different form. And then as I was researching this and going deeper and deeper into the scientific side of it, you start to realize that the mainstream science has already kind of understood that we're involved through the body and brain in a form of a decoding system. So the five senses, which is where we lock in, through which we lock into this this simulation field, it picks up wave field information, waveform information, and then it turns it in the senses turn it into electrical information, which is then communicated to the brain, and the brain then forms that information into a reality. And if you get really deep into this psychological research and in this decoding research of how the body manifests reality, you see that it ticks all the boxes of a computer decoding Wi-Fi. And I've been calling the body since the 1990s a biological computer, because that's what it is. And so because we are consciousness having an experience called a human, a very brief one, what is that human experience? That human experience is the body brain decoding this reality. That's why through the five senses, we are experiencing what we think is the human world. But the next stage that I went into, which I go into in the reveal a lot, was to look at all these people who had near-death experiences, and have them all the time, when their body ceases to function, and then eventually it's revived, and their consciousness kind of locks back into the body. And you think, well, what's going on there? Why are they in concert describing a totally different reality at the point the body ceases to function? Because the body is constantly decoding the Wi-Fi field symbolically into this reality. The moment it ceases to function, it stops doing that. So instead of presenting this world to our consciousness, we are released from that decoding world system into another reality. So what we call death is only the transfer of attention, literally, from this reality being decoded through the biological computer to another reality.
So you think when we die, it'll just be like changing channels?
It's exactly what it's like. You know when
it takes a lot of the fear out of it, you know?
Yeah, when you're this is the point. When you're watching a TV, and you're watching a channel, okay, and then what you do is you press the buzzer, the zapper,
clicker, yeah,
whatever
yeah,
you call it.
And suddenly it switches to another channel. The point is, the channel you've just been watching that you've switched from hasn't disappeared because you've gone to another channel. It's still broadcasting. It's just that your TV is no longer on that frequency to pick up the channel you were watching. Now it's picking up the channel you were switched to. And that's basically the foundation of what we call death. And these are the areas that, if you get deep into them, you start to understand the real foundation of the conspiracy and the real foundation of global control. For instance, on one level, it's George Soros funding open borders, and the Rockefellers and the banking system doing what it does, and it's political manipulation. Yeah, okay, and we need to acknowledge that and be aware of it. But the real conspiracy, the foundation of it, is that we are being tricked into experiencing a reality in a particular way, which is nothing like what it really is. And I've described it in the reveal like this. Imagine you're in the womb, and you've got a headset, a developing headset, like a virtual reality headset.
Yeah, right.
And then you come out of the womb, and you've got the headset on, and the headset is the body in this case, and it is constantly decoding the reality, the frequency band that you are experiencing as a human. All your parents and everyone you kind of see have headsets on, and they're decoding the same thing. You go to school, and teachers with a headset on and your mates with headsets on are all experiencing this same apparent reality. And then you go off to university and then into the world of work, and everyone's got headsets on, decoding the same world you are, bodies, in other words. You've got you turn on the television news, and a bloke with a headset on says, "Hello, good evening, and welcome. Here's the news." And if you go on the internet, it's quite instructive. If you go on the internet and you find these video compilations of headset experiences, and you'll see people, they put their headset on, and immediately their reality is gone. Their reality is transformed. They're in another reality. Now they may be in an empty room, but they're screaming, they're jumping, they're falling off their chair, they're screaming in terror because their reality has been completely transformed. Now, what are those headsets and all these gloves and stuff they have these days? What are they tapping into? They're tapping into the five senses through which we decode this reality, and they are overriding it. And what you can do if you're faced with this terrifying scene in the headset is you can go, whoa, blimey, oh, it was just a game. But if this body is constantly decoding the reality like an headset from cradle to grave, the only way you can take it off is to leave this world. And so what they are seeking to do, and you look at human society, you can see this, they are all seeking to focus your attention in the realm of the five senses. This is the big problem I have with the alternative media, the hijacked alternative media, as I call it. It's so five sense focused. And if you're in the five senses, if you are self-identifying who you are with the labels of a human life, like the labels of the body, then you are in the world and you are of the world, and it's gotcha. The matrix has you, as they say. But if you realize, and this is the real awakening, not awakening to manipulation of finance and politics, although that's important, of course it is, but it's the start, not the end. The big awakening is awakening to the nature of the true I, that we are actually consciousness, and as a result, we are ultimately infinite in nature, and we're not the myopia of the body, the myopia of the labels of a human life. And as you expand your sense of self, that expansion of self-identity becomes an expansion of consciousness. The two go together, and that's the point where you start to see the world in a completely different way. That's the true awakening, and without that, you only go so far, and then you stop.
You got any tips on how to like tap into that infinity, like while you're in this like waking life? How do you like recognize that?
Well, for me, things are always presented as so complicated. When I was on this journey in the 1990s, and I was meeting shamans and gurus and trying to work out what was going on, I looked at them, and I always dealt with these people one step back, because I don't get pulled into even the myopia of that reality. And you think, well, you're making it sound so bloody complex. You have to go on this fast or this quest, or you have to do this or do that, or have this food or that food. I'm not saying you shouldn't. This might be more healthy to do one thing than another. That's fine. but the transformation of conscious awareness, the transformation of self-identity, is simply an expanded perception of the I. Instead of self-identifying with the body and the names of the body and the labels. I mean, you know, you meet someone and they say, well, who are you? And you give them your name, you give them maybe your background, your birthplace, your job, and your religion, whatever. But they're just labels of a human life. They're not you, they're what you're experiencing. That's what you is experiencing. And if you can hold that self-identity, that you are experiencing these things, but you are the consciousness that are experiencing them, that pulls you out of the myopia. I know this because I've done it myself. I've gone through it myself, and I know loads of other people have gone through it. And as a result, you start to see things that you couldn't see before. You can see the panorama of connections rather than the myopia of apparently random events. And, you know, and also the previous book that I wrote last year, which came out, which is a trilogy. The trilogy is The Trap, The Dream, and the Reveal. The dream was about the fact that this reality is an induced dream, and it's induced by the information we're decoding into this apparent human world. And I, long time ago, when I was a mainstream journalist, I would wake up in the morning and I would put the radio on to get the news. It would be a news show. And then often I would fall asleep for a while, which seemed a long time. It was only short, really. And I would have these vivid dreams day after day after day. And when I woke up, I realized the vivid dream related to the information that was coming out of the radio.
Oh, yeah. It happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because it's an induced dream. And that's what this simulation is. It's an induced dream.
Well,
Now,
I kind of get that from like you ever hear of sleep paralysis?
Of
sleep paralysis?
Oh yeah, I've had it.
So I get it all the fucking time and it's brutal, but I've noticed with sleep paralysis, and then also I've smoked DMT before. When I have sleep paralysis, a very low frequency starts buzzing in my head. And the same thing when I went and did DMT, a very high frequency buzz in my head, and the juxtaposition of what you see at a high frequency and what you see at a low frequency is like real weird, because it's like you're tuning into like their existence or whatever you want to call them.
Exactly. And you know what you know Robert Monroe was talking about when he very much popularized out of body experiences, when you your consciousness projects out of body without you actually having to die. And of course, the CIA got involved in that with the gateway process, as they called it. And so many people in this gateway process kind of CIA operation saw reptilian entities in their projected reality, what people call the astral reality, the one that interpenetrates this one, that they gave a name to them. They called them the alligators. Mm-hmm. And Robert Monroe described how he was told in one of these projections in another dimension that humanity, and when I heard this, it was kind of not a revelation, it was a confirmation, because I'd met people and had experiences and had lots of research in different areas long before that, where I understood that actually there are entities operating outside of human sight, visible light, that are actually feeding off low vibrational human energy. I mean, you can think of the Matrix movies, where the machines were feeding off the babies, then they were feeding off the energy that they were giving off. And I started to research this too, and realized that science had long understood that every time we think or feel emotion, we are giving off a frequency, and that frequency relates to the type of thought and the type of emotion. So joy, love, and all these emotions that we'd like to bring into the world, all these experiences we like in the world, they are high frequency. And your fear and anxiety and depression and hatred and conflict are all low frequency emotions and mental states. And you start to realize that this non-human force operating just at the periphery of human awareness is feeding off the low vibrational states of emotion and thought. So when Robert Monroe talked about what he learned in his astral projections, that this force, this non-human force, was feeding off human energy, and he called it loosh. He gave the name loosh. They're feeding off this loosh, and so now you can start to see, as you put the dots together, why this simulation has been created. It's to hijack human perception of reality, which it does, and then to manipulate experience within the simulation that generates this low vibrational loosh, this low vibrational mental and emotional energy, which means that they don't want joy in the world.
No, they want to create nightmares.
They don't want love in the world. They want you to be in a low vibrational state. So the more war there is, the more deprivation, the more hunger, the more conflict of all kinds, the better, because they're all loosh creators. A world war is like a loosh banquet.
Yeah.
So you start to then grasp how these dots fit together, and why, therefore, you can understand the everyday life of human experience in a far more deep and profound way if you expand into these areas to see what daily life actually is for and part of. And what you're seeing with the that what I call the hijacked alternative media is the barricade around the five senses level of the conspiracy, of your politics and your left-right puppet show and stuff. And all this other stuff is being lost and it's being kept from us. And I don't think that's an accident. You know, when you are trying to limit how far people go, because, you know, when the COVID thing happened, they had to go through that on their way to their full-blown dystopia. But they also knew that at that point, for a lot of people, they would have to enter the room. It was no longer manipulation out of sight under the radar. Anyone with half a brain cell realized, actually, this is different. What's happening? Who is really controlling this? And so you have you had a situation where, for a lot of people, not the majority, staggeringly, but there we go, the genie was out the bottle to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So now what I'm saying is, once that genie is out of the bottle, it has the potential to go on expanding until people enter these realms of redefining their self-identity, redefining their power, and redefining their ability to dictate their own experience. Now, you don't want that, because if you start to realize what the game is at the level we're talking about here, then the game's over. So what you have to do is now limit that expansion so it stops. And what they've done is put people in there into the mainstream of the alternative media, and they've algorithmically supported them and they've financially supported them to hold the line at 5 cents reality and politics and finance and all this stuff. And you don't have to have that many people that know what they're doing to make this happen. All you have to do is pick people who have a limited knowledge, who have a particular focus, like it might be on politics and stuff. And then you algorithmically and financially promote the hell out of them. And what you then do is you build this focus of attention on those people, and they're coming out with all this is happening and this is happening, and they're attracting the attention that thinks, well, this is the level of the conspiracy, this is the level it's really going on. You hold them in that myopia. And I do shake my head most days now, actually, when I look at breaking news just discovered, and I think that was in my books 20 years ago.
That has to be frustrating.
Oh yeah, he never gets credit.
It is frustrating. I mean, I've just seen a clip of Andrew Tate and Candace Owens, where
that was wild. Yeah,
Tristan Tate is saying, Alex Jones was right about everything. He told us about the pedophiles and the blood drinking elite and all that stuff. And I'm thinking,
I just thought now she read the trigger.
Alex Jones, I don't know, 24 years ago, something like that, described me in a TV documentary as a turd in a punch bowl.
Yeah.
Fuck.
That was in the John Ronson thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was saying there was a blood drinking elite and a pedophile elite. And he said that was asinine that I said that.
Alex wasn't on the level yet.
Yeah. Suddenly you go on the internet and you're seeing someone saying Alex Jones told us all about this. Well, actually he didn't. And this is an interesting point, which is interesting to me, is that you look at when I was demonetized by YouTube in 2018, and I was thrown off it in April 2020. My channel was deleted, and without BitChute, that had actually the guy at BitChute had downloaded all my videos without us knowing. Then so much of that material would have been lost. But they just did it. They just deleted it. Now, I had a look just out of interest yesterday, and all these major players, most of them anyway, 90% of them, in this, who get the focus of attention in the alternative media, they're still on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Well, the craziest thing for me is my buddy, it's his brother Matt. He showed me like when I first got like the internet phone, he showed me Rogan, and he's like showing me about podcasts and everything. And I see Rogan, and he's like, oh yeah, he likes like Bigfoot and stuff. And I was like, oh man, he's definitely gonna have Icke on. And not only does he not have you on, now he's got Peter Thiel on.
Yeah.
And they're talking about a surveillance state and the Elon, and like we're all in this simulation, and I'm like, what is
Elon Musk
going on?
is a fucking fraud. That dude hasn't delivered on not one thing he's talked about.
No, see,
and it's like they delete you, but then they push some of the stuff you say, but they say it wrong. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, what I'm saying to people is that, I want this information circulating. I'm not standing here saying, you must acknowledge me and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, at least have some respect about where it's come from. But what you get, what I say to people is, listen, if you had just take Tucker Carlson. He said a little while ago now, a few months ago, that he had talked to insiders and he felt that he'd been told that there was basically a non-human alien level of this manipulation, right? In his next interview that I saw on when he mentioned that subject, he said, "Look, I don't want to know anymore. I don't want to know anymore. I kind of okay, but I'm not. I don't want to know any more about it." Now, from my point of view, what are you talking about? We want to know it all. But the point is that if you were Tucker Carlson and you'd got this information, then if you were going to interview someone, you'd say, well, who's been talking about this since 1995, 96? Well, that Ike bloke. Well, let's have him on and let's hear what he's got to say and see if he can give us any more insight into what's happening then. But
they just love laughing at you, man. I still take a lot of heat for the Saturn Moon Matrix. I showed everybody the Saturn Moon thing, and everybody fucking laughs at me for years.
Yeah, that's insane. You can't tell anyone anything because they get, like, in the dream you were talking about, like, you get the education, and then you're either going to stick with that, or if you're going to acknowledge that you don't know anything, you have to unlearn everything. So that's going to even take more time to relearn the right shit.
All I'm saying is, like, let it. Dude, you don't have to believe it, but just hear it out.
Yeah,
like,
that's why we hear everything out.
Yeah, just hear it out. But this what I was talking about earlier. You expanding your awareness, so expanding your self identity. A key part of that process is to symbolically get a blank sheet of paper and start again. And all your preconceived ideas about reality, about life, about you, let them earn their place on that piece of paper rather than get there just because that's all you've ever heard.
Yeah, right.
Start again and let these things earn their place rather than just accepting them because that's all you've ever heard. And in terms of Rogan, he's had a podcast since 2009, and he's never had me on. I've been in the area where he operates a number of times over the years. And I've had people who've been on his show and I've met them and we've had a chat and they've gone, what do you mean you've never been on the Rogan show? What? I'll give them a call. Never hear another thing. And I called this out a little while ago. Just asking the question, why is it that I've never been on that show? And someone contacted us and said, I know them. I know the Rogan lot. I'll get in touch with them. Never heard another thing. So when you look at that, you look at the Rogan won't talk to me, and Tucker Carlson won't talk to me, and all these other people overwhelmingly won't talk to me. There's got to be a reason for that, and there's got to be a reason why they still have their YouTube channels. And why they can still travel wherever they want. But
yeah, that is the fact that you've been banned from the what is it, the Shogun countries or something like?
Yeah, it's nearly 30 European countries, plus Australia, plus many others if I try to get in.
Australia is so pussy.
There has to be something about what I'm saying that is considered a threat that is not considered of this what I call hijacked alternative media, because they're still on YouTube, most of them, and they can still travel anywhere. So what is it? I just say to people, what would you think it is that I'm saying that means I get this treatment and they get a different treatment? And that's another thing, when I was banned from 30 European countries, nearly 30, I mean, that was a big deal. I mean, one of your own has just been banned from the entirety of Europe. Well, it was hardly mentioned in the at all, or virtually not in the mainstream of the alternative media. The mainstream media didn't mention it because what happened is I used to appear in the mainstream media from time to time in Britain. And they would obviously try to ridicule me and all that stuff, but you expect that, okay. And then some would treat you with a bit more respect. But anyway, then in the spring of 2020, I came out and said there is no COVID virus. It's all a scam, and the whole thing is leading to getting you to have a vaccine.
As soon as it kicked off, I said to Bill, "Let's see what Ike says."
I was with you on day one, David. 100% with you. And also the 5G stuff, where that just came in wet. Like everyone sat there and argued about a vaccine that isn't real and a virus is not real, but the rollout of 5G was every radio wave sickness you could possibly get, and everyone's just like, oh, it's probably from the COVID shots.
They just put a 5G thing right outside this window.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
Well, funnily enough, we've got an operation in Derby in the English Midlands called Iconic, and outside the building, right outside the building, guess what they've put?
5G,
a 5G man. Yeah. So there you go.
I heard there's 7Gs on the way. Like, what's that for?
6G's well in the pipeline, and 7G's on the way. And this is a really, really important area to understand, and it relates to people like Elon Musk. If we could just talk about him for a second, I've been tracking him for a long time, long before he bought Twitter, and I've been noting how his companies, well, they're not actually his companies, if the truth be told, but SpaceX is NASA, really, and the Pentagon, but how they were serving this agenda, because I picked up a long time ago that the plan was to create an electromagnetic sub-reality, as I called it then, which they call the cloud these days, and how the idea, the real means of control of the human mind in total, the hive mind, was through this electromagnetic cloud. So I picked that up a long time back, and then I kind of watched it unfold. So then the question is, okay, the human body is an electromagnetic organism, an electromagnetic organism. In the holographic expression, it's also a chemical organism, but in its base form, it's an electromagnetic organism. And so you could possibly have that connection between the electromagnetic cloud and the electromagnetic field of the body, and that absolutely is credible, yes. But then it became clearer and clearer that it was much deeper than that, because when COVID broke, and I could see where it was leading to a jab. And then when I started to realize what the jab was, and when I was looking at people who contacted me, many of them, people like La Quinta Columna in Spain, who were researching what was in the jab from very early on. And they're just about to come out with a book, I understand, they tell me, which is basically confirming that what I said in the spring of 2020 about COVID is actually true. And not only that for reasons they'll explain, that they've also established that this non-human force is actually real. And these are scientists.
These are real scientists.
Yeah, these are scientist people. So and there was a lady, I was on a call with La Quinta Columna months ago now. And there was a lady with them called Stuckenberger, and she has worked for the World Health Organization. She's worked for the EU, and she's worked at the UN, and she's a scientist. And I saw a video of her the other day. I mean, she was openly talking on this chat, which was recorded, about the fact that there is a non-human element to this, and she was on a video I saw the other day where she's talking about her contacts at CERN, of course, this place which is messing with reality, where they were telling her that they've created a portal, and entities are coming in and out through this portal. So anyway, so we have
fucking terrifying.
I started to look at the effects of this fake vaccine. And what La Quinta Columna have been doing, and it's quite a thing. I mean, you will have seen the electron microscope views of blood where these self-replicating systems are forming in the body, these nano systems.
Oh, nanobots, yeah.
Yeah. But what they did is they took the vial. Interestingly, you know, these fake vaccine vials are kept at a very, very low temperature, but they're activated at body temperature. So they're deactivated, they put them in the body, and the body temperature activates them. So what they did is they put the contents of these vials, Pfizer vials, as I recall, into a incubator at body temperature, and then they watched what happened. And it was pretty clear to start with, and then very quickly it started. There were these extraordinary structures started to appear in the vials, substance content, when it was released into body temperature. And this is what I suggest is going on. You've got the cloud, and that cloud is being expanded all the time, not just through towers in urban areas, but crucially from low orbit satellites, the by far biggest leader of which
Starlink
is Starlink, SpaceX, Elon Musk. And whether you know, you probably do, the Pentagon and the government have just given SpaceX a contract to create a government military communication network from space that mirrors Starlink, but is only for the military and government.
That'll go great.
Because you know, Elon Musk is such a threat to the system that his companies basically survive because of
government grants.
Subsidy.
Well, yeah. I wanted to do a podcast on Elon, but I mean, you could pretty much do it better than just in a couple of minutes. You could do it better than me and Bill will ever do it. But he has these companies. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'll do in a second is I'll get round to Twitter X and what that's really about. So you've got this nanotechnology self-replicating in the body, and you've got the cloud being constantly expanded, not just by SpaceX, although they're the leader, but others too. And you know, SpaceX has already got permission from the Federal Communications Commission for tens of thousands of satellites, with more on the way, low orbit satellites. The idea is to cover every part of every inch of the planet eventually. Now, so what's all this about? Well, what La Quinta Columna found in the vials, and what others have found who've done the same research, is something called graphene oxide. And graphene oxide, which is being pounded at us in many different forms, not least through chemtrails. It's been found in chemtrails as well. Whistleblowers have blown that one. What does this do? What does this graphene oxide do? Well, first of all, it's a superconductor of electricity. So it can, if it gets in the body, it changes the electrical communication system of the body. If it gets in the brain, it starts to change the brain's electrical communication system. That's how we decode and process information. And you'll know how many people who've had this fake vaccine, not a vaccine by previous criteria, who have changed their personality or become very much more, the word I hear so often is vacant. They're not
NPCs.
Yeah, NPCs, they're not with it anymore. And the other thing about graphene is that it amplifies the effect of electromagnetism in the body. So if you've got graphene in the body and you are subject to an electromagnetic field, which is what the cloud is, of course, it will be amplified. Its effect will be amplified in the body. And it's my feeling, and I've been saying this for years now, that this is the hive mind. what they're doing is connecting the human body brain to the cloud, and through the cloud, they are planning to dictate human perception.
So they're going to blanket the Earth in satellites and then project a new reality.
Yeah, if you look at because they are telling us if you know where to look, and with a guy called Ray Kurzweil, this so-called futurist at Google, you don't have to look very hard, because he has said, I've quoted him in the books a number of times, that by 2030 they'll be connecting the human brain to artificial intelligence, and in his words, once that connection is made, artificial intelligence will do more and more of human thinking until human thinking as we know it is basically negligible. This is the hive mind. So up to this point, they have been controlling your perception by controlling the information you receive, and emphasizing the information you receive in education, media, etc. The idea is they move to a point where you'll get your perceptions direct. You won't even form them yourself. That's the whole basis of this.
I might take the headset off if that happens, dude.
Yeah,
that's no different than like when people are like, oh, just Google it. It's like you don't have to think about anything. Just Google it, and Google will give you the answer to what you're thinking all day long.
Well, you see, I came up with a phrase in the 1990s called problem, reaction, solution. Create the problem, offer the solution. But its bedfellow, its stablemate, is what I call the totalitarian tiptoe. So you start at A, and you're going to Z, and you go in steps. You don't go in too bigger steps, certainly at the start, so that people are alerted to a pattern. But eventually, the more control you get, the bigger the steps and the quicker the steps you can take. And that's where we are now. It's now the totalitarian sprint, not the. And that's what's been happening. And if you notice,
things are accelerating, man.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And if you notice, there's never a time when people are sitting around, these people are sitting around strumming their fingers, waiting for the next level of technology to be developed or discovered or developed and created. It's seamless. It's a seamless flow of advanced technology going on and on and on, getting faster and faster and faster. Well, the reason for that, I suggest, is that it already exists. It's already in the underground bases and the secret projects. What they then do is play it out in a sequence that takes you on this tiptoe towards complete perceptual.
It's like a script.
Subjugation, yeah. And so what you need is cover stories for how this stuff is coming into the public arena. And so you have front men and front women.
They all came out of garages in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I watched a BBC documentary. It was a 2-part documentary. It wasn't very good because it's the BBC, but it was about Silicon Valley. And there was this sequence, I remember, where it was a sequence of garage doors. And they said this was developed behind this garage door. This was developed here. This kind of society changing technology. And I watched it and I thought, I can see this elite sort of having a meeting and saying, too many garage doors, guys.
Yeah.
Someone's going to suss this.
I mean, with the lightest scratch of the surface, Elon's grandfather's a technocrat.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I'm sure you're familiar with your girl, Susan, who just passed. She had a garage that was rented out to Sergey Brin.
Really?
And that's where Google's or whatever. She had to pay her mortgage, so the Brin brothers came and rented her garage and started their stuff there as well.
This is Susan Wojcicki.
Yes.
Yeah, Google, but at YouTube rather. But her sister, Anne,
23andMe.
She was married to one of the Google founders. Was it Sergey Brin? She was
and then she did 23andMe and then sold that to some like Israeli company. So there you go. At least you know that you're part Nordic.
Yeah, congratulations.
It's interesting when you research this, what a small world it actually is.
Mhm.
And so someone like Bill Gates, for instance, he's I say to people, you know, he seems to be powerful, but he's a gopher. He's a
Mhm.
very powerful gopher in terms of people below him. But in the hierarchy, he's still a gopher because the real power you never see. That's in the shadows. Like Klaus Schwab, he's still a gopher. And people like Gates and these other people like Zuckerberg and what have you, they're all front people for technology that already kind of exists, and they're bringing it out step by step by step. By the way, Jeff Bezos, his grandfather was one of the founders of the precursor to DARPA.
Yep.
Well, do you think
So
that they try this stuff in their grandfather's generation, but then they couldn't pull it off, and they're like, "All right, well, we'll just wait until it's time."
yeah, I mean, this is what I say about this technology. This whole control system they're constructing is technologically based, and as I talk about in the reveal, you know, AI outside of this reality is vastly more advanced than even what we see in the human world. And so it's being played out in this sequence, which, because, you know, it's like if you offered uh, the human race in general, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have a hive mind. We're going to connect you to artificial intelligence. If you'd have done that like 20, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
people would have gone, what are you on, mate? So what you do is you take them through a sequence. So you start with phones that are just phones, mobile phones. You go to smartphones, which you hold. You then go to smart watches and stuff that is on the body. And then you go inside the body, which is, again, we
Fucking
come back to
Neuralink, yeah.
Elon Musk. See, for me, I say this in the reveal. For me, Elon Musk, in many areas, is not actually at the cutting edge of technology in his companies. Um, Even SpaceX, we can mention that in a second. But he's selling a concept. So Neuralink is selling the concept of connecting the human mind to the human brain to artificial intelligence. It's a concept. What I write about in the reveal is how you've got two approaches that have the same outcome, but they are targeting different people. So you have the hard sell of AI connected to the human brain, and mind through your Gateses and your Kurzweils and your Klaus Schwabs. And then you have the soft sell. You have to go the soft sell because there is a significant number of people who don't want this stuff. So what you
Yeah.
have to do is pull them in. And brings us to Twitter X. First of all, you say to people, so before Elon, Twitter was banning everybody and censoring everybody. Oh yeah, yeah. You ever seen the Twitter files? Oh yeah. And so you say, so the deep state was doing that, right? Oh yeah. Okay. So the deep state had what it wanted then, because it wants to control information. It wants to control what you see and hear. So the deep state had hit the jackpot then at Twitter. Well, yeah, I suppose so. So why did they sell it to him then? Why did they sell it to a so-called free speech absolutist? Why would they do that?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you remember I was on a train, they did a Alex had you on, and they had some guy pretend he was Elon Musk, or it was Elon Musk. Do you remember
Yeah,
this?
I do. What's his name? Alex kept feeding me. Oh no, no, no! It really is Elon Musk. So I'm sitting there thinking, is it or isn't it? I mean, you know, I got
That
a
was
bit.
frustrating to listen to.
it was frustrating for me because I'm saying, is it or isn't it, or are we just playing bloody games here? So I actually don't think that was an accident that happened. But because I mean, it was kind of interesting. One of the things that I said in that interview with Alex Jones is, why is it that these people who bought the COVID hoax are suddenly coming in and being the go-to people over COVID?
Yeah,
like
Brett Weinstein.
Brett Weinstein.
Eric Weinstein the name just pisses me off. I hate that guy.
Yeah, but actually, his brother Eric Weinstein, who's on Rogan regularly, is a business associate of Peter Thiel, of course.
Oh yes.
And so what happened is that I said, this guy during COVID, you can see the clip on the internet, is describing to an interviewer how he wore a red bandana around his neck all the time during COVID when he was at home, so he could pull it over his face when anyone he went to answer the door. And then he put these glasses on, and he said, whenever I went out, I put these glasses on to protect my eyes from the virus getting in my eyes.
That's a scientist, dude.
He also has a theory of everything too, David. He's that smart that he did that, but also knows how the entire world exists and why it exists.
Yeah, well, he's a very, very clever man, apparently. So anyway, he said when he came home from being out, he would throw all his clothes in the washing immediately. And there never has been a virus. It was quite hilarious, really. But the point being that, okay, you fall for it. That's all right. I mean, you fall for it. All right. That's what you do.
Fell for Q.
Then to become the go-to person on COVID for people like Tucker Carlson, and I made these points in the Alex Jones show. And of course, Brett Weinstein's a big supporter of Elon Musk. And a few days later, Brett Weinstein is on the Alex Jones show, where they're both agreeing that Elon Musk is a wonderful person. And about 2 or 3 days later, Brett Weinstein's on the Rogan show, and they're both agreeing that Elon Musk is a wonderful person and a paragon of virtue. And it was like, what a reaction to one guy in England saying this guy's not what he seems to be. And so what I noticed, because once he bought Twitter, because of all the research I've done into him over the years, I thought this is a scam. Now, what form does this scam take? Let's have a look at it. And what I saw was people who, in the so-called alternative media, who were questioning him and looking at his companies. There was a Dutch activist called Eva Vlandingerbroek who did a speech which was on the internet in 2022, in which she said that Elon Musk is not our friend. He's pushing us towards transhumanism. And then he bought Twitter, and it all changed. Eva Vlandingerbroek became a doe-eyed, Elon kind of a person. And the alternative media, that mainstream of it, stopped calling him out and started eulogizing him. And I'm thinking, what's changed? Well, the only thing that's changed is he's bought Twitter. But you see, there's what they're doing with Twitter X is that they are bringing people into one place, which means that they can then start to identify people very easily. But what they're doing is they're basically taking it's like a steam whistle. They're just taking the steam out of it a bit. So if you absolutely ban everyone completely, then you're going to get a bigger reaction than if they've got a place to let steam off. So that it has that. But there's another thing, and that's the way they are doing the censorship. And this was described by Linda Yaccarino, of course, a World Economic Forum stalwart, when she became CEO of Twitter X, in which she said that we're going to have freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. And we're going to have
That's what the ADL says.
exactly. What she also said is that if something is lawful but awful, you're going to find it very difficult to find it on X. Now, excuse me, you're talking about freedom of speech. So what they're doing is shadow banning people like crazy who have the wrong opinions. And they've also started here and there now to suspend and delete as well. But what they're doing is they're using the algorithms to promote and accentuate those they want to be seen, very visible, and the opposite for those that they don't want to be visible.
The craziest thing for me is I couldn't escape that Candace Owens thing. If I opened up my phone, it was like, and I'm sitting there going, how is she allowed to say this?
Oh, yeah.
This is crazy. So I feel like that's like, they're letting that out. Like they're forcing that. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Well, I've been looking at this for a little while, and I started to be banned, and my meetings cancelled for calling out the Israeli manipulation through Mossad and the IDF and the government. In 1995, that's when it started for me.
Nobody even heard of Mossad, dude.
Oh my God.
And so so many of my meetings were cancelled, and I had protests outside my meetings in 1995, 96. And that's one of the key reasons I'm banned from nearly 30 countries. And it's a wonderful example of what I said earlier about, you put this stuff out for decades and suddenly it becomes breaking news when someone else does it.
Yeah.
But I've looked at this and I've looked at what's happening in Gaza. Now, the reaction to the slaughter in Gaza has been such that if you wanted to take the heat out, then you would have done a deal by now. You would have way back. You'd have found a way to stop that because it was really bad PR. Mm-hmm. But they didn't. They just kept going, and they're still going. And suddenly all this stuff comes out about Israel, and a long time ago, you would have read it in the Trigger. I've started to see that the Jewish community is actually controlled by a secret society called Sabbateans or Sabbatean Frankists that actually have no allegiance to Jewish people at all. They've hung them out to dry so many times over the years, and they'll have no compulsion about doing it again. And what concerns me is that Jewish people as a group are going to be subject to the consequences of all this stuff that's going on.
I mean, Netanyahu said that. He said? He gave them all like the extreme vaccines.
Oh yeah, he vaccinated the shit out of Israel.
Well, that's a wonderful example of what I mean, where he's talking to Jordan Peterson, who's doing this interview with him and letting him get away with the most extraordinary lies.
Go get him, BB.
Yeah, I mean, with his mate Ben Shapiro.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Netanyahu actually said that he'd allowed Pfizer to use Israel or Israelis as a laboratory for his fake vaccine. And I've got a number of contacts in Israel, and they contact me when these things are going on. And they were saying what a bloody nightmare it was there with all the pressure to have the fake vaccine.
You need a card to go food shop. You need a vaccine card to go food shopping, right?
Yeah, now you do.
So they have. Why would you do that? People have. I remember a Jewish lawyer. It was during COVID, and he's giving evidence to a investigation, and he said that what happened in Nazi Germany people remember. He said, but what's happening in Israel, this is during COVID, is reminding me of Nazi Germany. And he asked the question, why would the government of Israel be treating its people like the Nazis did, right? Well, what if this Sabbatean cult, which actually has contempt for Jewish people, were basically the same force that was manipulating in Germany as was that took over Israel, because this Sabbatean cult has been in control of Israel from day one. It's certainly in control via Netanyahu, and so it keeps doing things that are not good for Jewish people.
It's funny. His name's Yahoo.
Yeah.
when you think, and this is now well documented, that Hamas came into existence with serious help and support, not least financial, from the Israeli government. And then again, when you're coming from a point of view that you're not picking a side, you're taking what the side does, all of it in and of itself, and you're listening to every statement, and you're commenting on the statement. You're not taking a group think. So you group all bad, you group all good because you're my group. You're listening to both groups and you're saying, well, yeah, I agree with that, but actually that makes no sense at all. And this is what you do if you're a real serious researcher looking for the truth rather than supporting a belief system. So when you look at what happened on October the 7th, it's very easy to condemn the impact on Israelis and the taking of the hostages, just as it's very, very easy to condemn the reaction of the government. Now, if you take a step back and you get out of the sides, you then ask this question, which is always very enlightening: who benefits? Who benefited from those Hamas operatives getting through the fence, the most defended fence in the world, but probably usually at multiple places to attack Israelis? Well, if you want problem reaction solution to clear out Gaza, because that's your intent, you need an excuse to do it. And Hamas getting through that fence in multiple places gave them the excuse, and we've seen what's happened since. Now, there's a few things that come from that. If you're a Hamas leader and a Hamas operative, you bloody well know what the consequences are going to be of you doing that, because you've experienced it before.
Oh yeah.
I've noticed over the years how when there's sort of peace talks are making any kind of progress or appear to, suddenly pop gun rockets start, by comparison with what the Israelis
they used to do this with the IRA.
Yeah.
They start firing out of Gaza into Israel. And oh no, well, we've got to stop these talks now. We can't have this. And you get a massive response from the air, from the Israeli government. So that when you do what you did on October the 7th, I mean, there was areas of exaggeration, there was areas of involvement of Israeli troops, all that, I accept that. But some terrible things happen. That if you do that, you're going to get an absolute response. And interestingly, a lot of these Hamas leaders are in Qatar, and I've been waiting for the Israeli government to condemn Qatar. They never come.
Yeah. Oh, we lost him.
No, not yet. Stay on.
So you're not taking a side, and so you're not saying Hamas good and Israeli government bad, or vice versa, which allows you to see the shades of gray. And as a result of what they did, when you think that at the time it happened, there were former IDF troops that were going on the internet and saying, when I was with the Israeli Defense Forces guarding that fence, if a cockroach went near the fence, we would know about it.
Yeah.
And yet somehow they multiply not only breached the fence, but there was no response for a long time. Again, you come back to this relationship, this dynamic. If you are a cult operating, a satanic cult operating within the Jewish community, where the Jewish community think you're one of them when you're not, then you don't give a damn about what happens to Israelis. I mean,
Well,
you know,
that's how they make stuff like the Hannibal Directive.
yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. So immediately when you stop taking sides, you go into the shades of gray, where the truth invariably lies. And it's very clear that the Hamas attack was allowed to happen. It was planned to happen. The Israelis who suffered the result and the hostages are just fodder. They're just collateral damage for this cult.
It's a
And
loosh
it
farm.
justified the what they always wanted to do, which was basically clear out Gaza.
And it's a win-win for, like, Israel got what they want, and those Hamas boys that are in Qatar are getting all this money from Iran that probably comes from us anyway. So it's like all the same team just paying each other for letting shit go on, and a little loosh going on too.
Loosh
Well,
train,
see, that's the point again. You know, you're absolutely right. When you see the totality and the real big picture, I would say the biggest picture, we've got work to do on that, but the big picture that we can start to see now, you can see that there is a 5 cents manipulation reason, which is what they want, just to clear out and take control of Gaza, because Gaza's an important piece of land to them for historical reasons. And you can also see that it's generating loosh on a monumental scale, because the loosh is not only coming from the emotions of the people under those bombs. The loosh is coming from the hatred of those in Israel that are doing it. It's also coming from the anger and fury and reaction of people around the world to what is going on. It's a massive loosh creation operation when something like that happens.
I'm not gonna give them any more, dude. I swear to God, next time I feel bad, I'm like, no, not today. You get none. It's all hope. All hope over here.
Yeah, this is an interesting area too. How do we get pulled into believing in the dream and the dream being real? We get caught in the drama of the dream. Like, you know, if you have a dream and it's you are emotionally connected to the dream, then what happens in the dream can affect you emotionally and mentally. You can wake up and say, oh my God, I've had a nightmare or whatever. But if you have these things called lucid dreams, you can observe the dream because you know you're in a dream. So you're not emotionally and mentally impacted by the dream because you're an observer of the dream. You know it's a dream. And this process of realization of what this reality is, and this expansion of your awareness so that you can understand and access more and more awareness of reality, self, all of it, you start to withdraw from the drama. And the more you withdraw from the drama, the more you become an observer. It doesn't mean you don't do what you believe to be right to change what you want to change, but what it means is you're much more aware and clever and perceptive of what you need to do, because you can see the connections that you couldn't see before. And this whole thing about observing the dream rather than getting pulled into it is very, very important to not producing this loosh, if you like, because you know, if you think of all the emotional reactions and responses and mental responses we have all the time, and people get wound up. It's like people with a headset on. Oh my God, it's a monster coming! All this stuff. You are constantly getting pulled into it. But how often, after you've had this big emotional response to this drama, oh, you'll never guess what's happened now, within minutes or hours, it's no longer, well, no, it don't really matter, does it? You know, and it's like when you look back at your life and you see all the things that wound you up, that pulled you in the drama and really affected you emotionally, whatever. And then you look from the perspective of today and you think, well, it didn't really matter, did it? Really? I mean, some things do, but most of them, it's like, well, it don't really matter. And the trick is, as you withdraw from the dream and become the observer of events rather than getting pulled in, it's like sitting in the seat in the theater in the audience rather than being a player on the stage. You can start to see what matters and what doesn't. In the moment it's happening rather than with hindsight. Because, you know, my experience of this is that, you know, the vast majority of things that produce loosh don't actually matter pretty soon after they happen. But you've produced the loosh by then. You've been pulled into
gave it up.
been pulled into the dream. You know, the dream's got you. The matrix has got you, as they say. When if you can observe it, it won't. You know, it's like
zooming out on your life.
In the Matrix movies, the people in the Matrix were caught in the Matrix. That was reality to them. But those who were coming into the Matrix and out of the Matrix, they knew it was a Matrix. They knew it was a fake reality. They knew it was all a construct. And so they had a much wider understanding of what they were doing and what was happening than the populations of the Matrix that thought it was real. And that really does describe our plight, really. Most people, for understandable reasons, are in the dream and of the dream. And if you can be in the dream but not of the dream, you're an observer of the dream, you can see it for what it is. It's a completely different way of living your life.
That's
it really
cool.
is.
And that just out of curiosity, when you had like your big like out of body experience that you talk about a lot, is there anything, like, I know it was like forever ago, but is there anything that really has stuck with you like since that happened, or like any vision or anything like that from going through that, like becoming consciousness or whatever?
Well, the next stage of pushing on into more and more knowledge and understanding, because you know there's always more to know, was I went through this process, and was basically the motivation for this what I call reality trilogy: the trap, the dream, and now the reveal. And it was I could see that reincarnation was real, because there is enormous evidence. I mean, in the reveal, I feature this guy called Ian Stevenson, who found all these kids, very young kids, who could remember past lives, and he checked them out. And in terms of the detail they were talking about, often in places that where they weren't living, and found that, you know, enormous numbers of them were accurate, very, very detailed accuracy. And you know, about that time, I'd kind of, okay, reincarnation is real. What I'd not bought was the reincarnation is about consciousness constantly returning into the human world to learn lessons. I hadn't bought that at all. The kind of Eastern philosophy, because once I realized, you know, this simulation was real, and that it was designed to generate this loosh by generating emotional and mental situations to generate it, I thought, okay, I can understand why consciousness might be enticed, manipulated into this reality once. But, you know, I'm sure you're the same. I've traveled extensively over the years. I can't do it so much now, but I have traveled extensively. And the great majority of people in the world, in Asia, in Africa, South America, Central America, are not having a good time. They're trying to survive another day, a lot of them, most of them actually, in various areas. And I thought, you know, when you leave the body, when the biological computer ceases to function, um, your reaction would surely be, I ain't bloody going back there. That's a shithole, that. But it was clear to me that they did. And so I've really gone into that in the reveal, because I've talked to people who have the usual near-death experience, that tell the story of meeting loved ones or religious heroes or whatever. And I go into that in the book. I don't think that's real at all, personally, at the level that they're operating at, the level they're experiencing it. But I also talk to people who can remember coming into the body. There are some that can remember that. Their memory holds. Usually it starts to go past life memories about the age of 7. Ian Stevenson found that. But with some, it can go into adulthood. And I read the accounts, and I watched the accounts, and I talked to people who say they have this memory. And you know, some still explained it away, or we come in to learn lessons and all that stuff. I'm just been killed by a serial killer. I've learned my lesson. You know, what's that about? You know what I mean? I'm just
Sending
caught.
me back to Gaza.
I've just been, yeah, yeah, exactly. You're in Gaza. Oh yeah, what lessons are they learning? You know, but it's all crazy. But it's like, you're trying to explain something positively that doesn't have to be explained positively, because it's a trap. It's a trap. It's a trap to hold us on this Buddhist wheel of samsara, going in and out, in and out, in and out.
Are you familiar with the Egyptians and their like belief of the net, and how like Thoth would teach? They had students of the net, and like it was all about how this whole place is covered in some sort of net, and we're trapped in here because of that.
Well, that's so relevant to what I was about to say.
Do it for a living.
The common theme of these people that can remember coming into incarnation, first of all, that this other realm, at the astral realm, which interpenetrates this one, seems to be very technological. The whole process of incarnation seems to be very technological. I explain that in the books and quote those people. But the other thing is that this energetic field that people enter is incredibly dense, like extraordinarily dense. So what they're doing is they're bringing you in, consciousness in, to a very, very energetically dense environment. So already, you know, if you want to produce loosh, and you want to produce low vibrational experiences and emotions and mental reactions, you need energetic density, because energetic lightness does the opposite. So you want this density. And this has been described very clearly by people who don't know each other. Yeah, there's this density. And there's one lady who I feature in the book, in one of the chapters, who talked about coming in through, like a net, like an electromagnetic, electrical net web. And once you enter it, you go into this real extreme density. And what a lot of these people have talked about, again, you know, their own experience, not having a chat with anyone else, is that, see, I looked at this and I thought, okay, you come into this realm and into this world, into this band of frequency, and some people remember their past lives. Most people don't. Why? And then when I've read and watched these accounts, endless numbers of them, of near-death experiences when they've left the body, they say, I felt this love. I'd never experienced it before. And you look at it and you go, but you believe in reincarnation, right? Oh, yeah. So why haven't you experienced it loads of times before? and then the penny drops. When you enter this density, this electromagnetic field, the vast majority of people, they have their mind wiped. And their mind is still wiped. When it leaves the body, it's still in a mind wiped, memory wiped state until it gets back into this other realm where it's again entrapped onto this wheel of samsara, and then it can start to remember. But they've got to get you back in the trap before you can remember. So it is fascinating to see these, if you like, modern day experiences being told. And then, as you say, you look at these ancient themes, and they're the same.
I wonder if it's like
They're
genetic
telling
memory.
basically the same story, but they would have to tell the same story because it's the same construct.
The thing that's kind of confusing though, and like if someone, like say someone would try to argue with you and just be like, that's a
Okay.
crazy theory. It's like the Van Allen radiation belt exists. And if you're an electrical light being and you want to escape this place, you have to go through a radiation belt that'll fuck up anything. So you're technically on this earth right now trapped because you cannot get out of this level of radiation that covers the entire earth. So
Yeah,
it's kind of like
maybe,
it's
yeah.
right there.
yeah, but you know, for me, this astral realm, which is the astral realm, is what people call the spirit world, the afterlife world, but it's not the infinite world. It's another level, I say anyway, from what my research, it's another level of the simulation. Because, you know, if you only had the human level of the simulation, well, you know, you're going to run out of loosh, because people are going to leave it and go, well, sod that, I ain't going back there. You have to entrap them by, and what's interesting is how the other realm, the astral realm, is a different frequency. It's a much lighter frequency, and so it's about comparison. So when you've been in the density of the human realm, and then you leave the body, you go into a much less dense energetic environment. And at that point, it feels like bloody heaven, because it's so different. You perceive it to be heaven. It's been set up like that you believe that this is the spirit world. And from the spirit world, you come back into the human world to learn lessons. This is like this whole thing about karma, you know, which is, in the way that it's explained, for me, is nonsensical. Of course, when you do something, there is a consequence for that. Okay, but that's if you, for instance, leave the body and you've done something you say that you don't really think you should have done, mind you, in this density, why wouldn't you? And then you go into this so-called spirit world. If you can acknowledge that actually what you did wasn't the best, the way to behave, wasn't the thing to do, you gather that awareness, that awareness of that's not the way to do it. You don't need to come back into here to experience it being done to you or whatever in this karma thing. But if you believe that's necessary, you're going to come back, and you're going to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back. And this trap, this wheel of samsara of the Buddhists, is actually a wheel of entrapment. But for reasons I talk about in the books, you can break this cycle. But again, it's about, the idea is that you come into this reality, and you have no idea who you are, where you've come from, where you're going. That's the fear of death. And it's to hold that. And then you leave the body, and again, you are bewildered because you can't remember, even though you've been here many times, where you are, certainly in that initial period. And so you're completely bewildered. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know where you are and what's going on. But and this is why I've written the books, if during a human life, a human experience, you can understand the game and you can understand the trap and how it works, then when you leave the body, you can get out of here.
I wonder how many times I've done it.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm going to the Monroe Institute, and if, say, I get my left and right brain linked up, and I come across one of these alligator people, as Monroe called it, how do I fuck that dude up? Because I'm not trying to make a deal with that guy. I want nothing to do with him.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, one of the things I've been trying to get across over the years is that these entities, that which is behind this construct, they don't have any power. They don't have power. They don't have power over you, except the power that you believe they have power over you. And I was going to mention a few minutes ago how, although the density of this so-called spirit world astral is different to this one, the construct and the structure is the same. So most people, when they're in a human experience, they will look to authority to tell them what to think. They will look at experts. What does the expert scientist say? What does the expert doctor say? They won't think for themselves. They're giving that power of perception over to authority. And then when they leave the body, the same thing happens. You have authority figures that appear to you. And, I talk about what they might be in the book, but you might have a religious hero. If you're a Christian and you come out of the body, you might see a projection of Jesus, or you might see a projection of an Islamic figure if you're a Muslim. And because you're in a bewildered state, because your mind's been wiped, that memory of doing this endless times has been wiped still at that point. You're at that, you give your power away to these authority figures like elders. I mean, elders, why do all these near-death experiencers have this experience of the so-called life review, where they watch their life in their human life play back to them, while elders are there? And elders are like elderly kind of white-haired, bearded, quote, people. Well, in this astral realm, there's no such thing as aging. The body ages because it's going through a cycle. The program running through the body is making it age. It's a hologram, and if you create a hologram, there's no need for the hologram to age. It just is. But there's a program running through the body which makes it age. It goes through this aging cycle until it expires. And so there's no aging in outside of the dense physical world, the construct of the human construct. There's no aging. So how can you have an elder? How can you have a wizened old man, in this group overseeing, guiding you on your path on the wheel of samsara? Because the human perception is that an elderly figure with a beard and long hair and robes is somehow wise and therefore should be followed and should be listened to, and you should be guided by them because they're wise. It's all perceptual manipulation, both in this human realm and the next one. And just to finish the point here, we have a physical body, or what appears to be a physical body. It's a holographic body, actually, which our consciousness experiences through. So if I wanted to bang this table, I couldn't do that with my consciousness, because my consciousness is at such a different frequency to the table that I wouldn't be able to do it. So we take on an outer shell that resonates within the frequency band that we want to experience, and then we can interact with that frequency band. We can pick things up and do all the things that we do. But when that's gone, we enter another realm, but there's still an external energetic, if you like, quote, body field that we are experiencing the astral through. So we have an external field which is interacting with the astral field, so we can interact with that. And I say that body is what we call the soul. You know, this manipulative network, it doesn't have a problem with you believing you have a soul. It would rather you believe that life's a bitch and then you die and then you disappear. They'd rather that. But they're fine with you believing you have a soul, because that's still in the astral, and it's still in the simulation, and it's still in the wheel of samsara. If you go beyond that and you see yourself as pure spirit, pure awareness, a state of being aware, no form, just a state of being aware, that is resonating at a frequency, and even beyond frequency, that is way beyond the simulation, whether it's the astral level of it or the human level of it. And so if you reach this point of self-identity, I'm not an astral body, I'm not an astral soul, I'm not a human, I am spirit, I am a state of awareness, then you can leave this whole construct when you leave the body, because what keeps you here is belief in that it's real. But what keeps you in the astral to be on the wheel of samsara is you believing it's real, and neither are actually real. It's all a perceptual trickery. That's my view, anyway.
well, yeah.
You're
more than gracious with your time. Also, Albion was a sick documentary.
That was great.
I fucking love that documentary.
Oh, thanks so much.
That was awesome. And then, is there anything like you got to plug besides Iconic or Revival?
Well, this book's out now. It's officially out on September the 1st, but it's out now. And there's an ebook version of it, and there's also an audio version of it. I actually read the book, which I really enjoy doing, because you can put your personality into it and you can deliver it in the way you wrote it. So it's a lot of fun. So that's available as well. And I'm just going on a speaking tour of Britain, which is the only place I can go on a speaking tour of.
He saw you in Manchester.
No, Liverpool.
Or Liverpool. He went to it.
Yeah, I went there in September. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, they are amazing events because of the nature of the people that come. There's a real.
It's a great vibe.
It's a great vibe. It's a great vibe because what you're dealing with is open-minded people. And that is a vibe in itself, which is different to closed-minded people. I remember I was speaking in Sheffield a very, very, very long time ago, in the English, in the north of the Midlands, and I looked outside behind the curtain just before I started, and there was this amazing audience, and it was anything from like 13, 14 to like 90. and it was all different races, all different kind of backgrounds. And someone next to me said to me, "My God, what's the common denominator of all those people?" And I said, "An open mind." And that's what it is. It's a mind that is open to other possibilities, which is why they want to install and infuse into us this norm, this sense of normal. Because once they've got that and it solidifies, then you're not going to open your mind, because you think well, it's not normal if I do, and if I start to go into these areas, that's not normal. And the normal is infinity. That's the point. Infinity of possibility. Anything is possible within the infinity of possibility, which is what we live in, ultimately. But what the construct and its manipulators want to do is to isolate us in a tiny fraction of that infinite possibility, which we believe is the way things are. This is what normal is. But of course, what they're doing constantly, and they're doing it all the time, is they're subtly moving the normal, the sense of the normal. They're moving it along towards what we've been talking about. They're moving this normal, and if you do it slowly enough, that people won't realize that their normal is moving. Especially, this is a point. I was born in 1952, and so I see that the normal today is not the normal of the 1950s.
Oh, it must be crazy to watch.
Yeah, it is crazy. But if you're born into this normal in the last few years or whatever, or the last 10 years or whatever, or a bit more, this is the way things are. You know, the smartphone generation, that's normal to them. They don't know anything else. They've not got a radar to compare what was with what is, because what is all they know. And so they're moving this, and this is the reason why they want to get rid of older people as fast as they can, and why the target of their perceptual manipulation is young people. It's children and young people, because
that's how they can move it faster.
Yeah, they're the ones that are born into this world, which is becoming what they ultimately want it to be. Whereas older people have the radar, the comparison to say, this is not the normal I remember. You know, I mean, when you look at the talking earlier about the electromagnetic field, the technologically generated electromagnetism in the atmosphere when I was born in 1952 was a tiny fraction of what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know, we are electromagnetic beings on one level. So what people call the auric field, that's an electromagnetic field. And therefore, if the electromagnetic environment changes dramatically as it is, it's got to affect you.
Yeah, I wonder if that's why they're coming out now saying the millennials are getting all that cancer.
Yeah.
I wonder if we're gonna get wrecked from all this EMF and the 5G and stuff.
Well, it's like some will realign their electromagnetic field to go with the transition, and some won't. Mm. Those that won't, their electromagnetic field will be scrambled by what's happening. And you know, I learned this a very, very long time ago, even when I was still in football, that the electromagnetic field of the body, if that's in balance and in harmony, then your physical body will be in harmony, because your physical body, or what we perceive it to be, the holographic body, is simply a projection of your electromagnetic information field, right? So one's an expression of the other. So this is why, you know, when they started bringing in these new levels of electromagnetic generation, and it's why, you know, people that are working with or living near generators of electromagnetism, including nuclear power stations, why they can get certain diseases and cancers that the general population doesn't get in the same ratio. It's because their electromagnetic field is being impacted by other electromagnetic fields that they're being subjected to. And so as this cloud keeps on emerging and gathering, and its G's go up, it's going to be impacting upon the electromagnetic field of the body, and some will flow with it, and they'll become changed, but they'll survive, and then others won't, because if your electromagnetic field is distorted and disturbed, your body will express that disturbance in what we call dis-ease, disharmony, illness. But this is the point. I'll finish on this. Consciousness is all powerful. This is why they are working to stop us being conscious and stop us expressing consciousness to the power that we could. So consciousness can overwhelm anything. It's a freaking dream. So therefore, if you become aware of that and you open yourself to the greater and greater swathes and magnitude of consciousness, then you can override these programs. You can override the effect of the electromagnetic disturbances. You can even override the effect of these fake vaccines. If your consciousness reaches a point of awareness where it can override the programs, and therefore, if you want to stop that, you've got to stop people becoming conscious to that level, and that's what's happening. That's what the whole thing is about. You start to I would kind of visualize it like this. You're in the body, and your consciousness is in the body, but there's like a freeway going up into infinity and out into the greater infinite reality. And if you hold that connection, then you see the world in a completely different way. You see it, you get it, you're aware of all that's going on, because you are tapping into that level that can see what's going on. So this simulation crowd, if you like, are all the time trying to put in the slip roads to get you off that freeway to connect with infinity. They want to put you in a slip road, which is a belief system, and make sure that that's a cul-de-sac, so you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to stick. So when you start to think about maybe there might be other realities than this one, then they'll give you a religion to believe in.
Yeah.
To that's a holding position. Okay. Yeah. You're right. There is, there's other levels, and God and all that stuff, and boom, there you go, into your into your cul-de-sac, and you just stay there and repel all borders and call anyone that doesn't believe what you believe blasphemer. You're a scientist, right? And you're a scientist thinker, and so you don't believe in religion. No, you believe in science. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to give you a slip road off the infinite connection, so that you go into a cul-de-sac where you believe this world is all there is, and life's a bitch, and then you die. You're a Richard Dawkins, and
I hate him.
Yeah, because you look
such
at
a know-it-all, man.
You look at Richard Dawkins, and what I see is a religious believer.
Mm-hmm.
Because
He's
science,
the ultimate atheist.
yeah, orthodox science is a religion. Its holy books are the orthodoxy books of science, and it will not go beyond it, because if it goes beyond it, then its belief system, it must be wrong, and it's not going to accept that.
Oh, a good test is if you say, I don't believe Darwin's theory. They flip out.
They flip out. Yeah.
Also, their whole entire scientific religion is based off a miracle of the Big Bang Theory.
Oh yeah, right.
It's like the same shit.
Exactly. I mean, you know, what was it the guy said? Give us a free miracle and I'll take it.
Yeah.
Give us one miracle, I'll explain to you everything.
Yeah. And honestly, you know, we come back to where we started. When you think how little we can see and how little we're aware of in this band of frequency we call human, how can you be dogmatic about how things are? All you can do is expand your mind and get as close as you can and question more and more and expand into more and more levels of possibility. But in the end, you know, we're still in an environment where we're incredibly limited in terms of the human world and human perception of actually grasping the extraordinary magnitude of what we're part of, and that suits the manipulators perfectly because it's a cul-de-sac. We don't care what you believe as long as you believe it rigidly and don't question it.
Yeah.
Supposed to be a nutter.
He's got some squirrely ones. Alex Jones.